All right, here we go. It's 5 a.m. Imagine that. I like to get up early, okay? Sometimes even before that. It's 5 a.m. I sneak out of the room. I'm going downstairs, and it's my job. I grind the beans for the coffee each day. So it's 5, the coffee's brewing. It's early enough to where there's still that kind of chill in the air. You know what I'm talking about? Where you get up and it's still just a little cold. And I've got my spot on the couch, and I have the blanket. I fold the blanket up. It's ready for me if I need it the night before. I'm prepared, okay? I am prepared. And I'm doing my best to carve out time in the Bible, or time praying, time doing meaningful work between me and the Lord, okay? And so the coffee's brewed. I get it. I go over to the couch, side table. And here's the typical setup. I've got my iPad because I do reading on the iPad. I also have my phone because, after all, it is my phone, and I live in the year 2026. I have a laptop generally within arm's reach if I need it. And then, just to boot, in case of emergency, I do have the portable Nintendo Switch not too far away. Okay? And so it's 5 a.m. By the time I get to my couch, it's 5:10, 5:15. And so I've got the coffee, and I've got my phone. It's 5:15. And then I scroll out, and I look, and it's not 5:15. It's 6 a.m. What on earth has happened? It is what happens to so many of us, in that you just lose time, do you not? Kind of fluttering around, putzing around, engaging from one thing to the next, and before you even know it, before you even realize it, 5 a.m. has turned into 6 a.m. And you think to yourself, what happened? There was a movie when I was a kid called Flight of the Navigator. Does anybody remember? Raise your hand if you saw Flight of the Navigator. You might need to be in like your 40s to really appreciate this movie. There's a few hands, okay? A kid in a neighborhood is wandering through the woods, right? Trips, falls, wakes up in the woods, and 8 years have passed. This sounds like nightmare fuel, does it not, for a movie? I mean, this sounds like the making of a great, intense, and it's kind of a comedy. But long story short, my man gets accidentally taken on an interstellar journey by aliens, and they return him to the wrong year, okay? And it's 8 years that have passed. And while you have not been abducted by aliens, and if you feel like that's the case, maybe we should talk afterwards. But you haven't been on some interstellar trip, I promise you. But what has happened is you, like our man in the movie, oftentimes lose time. Like the snap of a finger. You find yourself distracted. You find yourself lost in a little bit of a blip. Where did it go? This isn't just my story. I promise you, I am not the only one who loses track of time on this little thing. I know it's not just me. It's my story, it's your story, but make no mistake about it, even though the means are different, the resources and tools are very different, Jesus has a very similar conversation regarding distraction with two sisters in the Bible, and their names are Mary and Martha. And in the same way that I find myself distracted, even though they didn't have phones, they find themselves in the midst of distraction and the tension that comes along with it as well. What do we do about it? Because this is probably far more of a problem than you give it credit for. We're starting a series called Under the Influence. And one of the things that influences you more than you oftentimes are willing to admit is this thing right here. And even if it's not this device, it might be this, it might be some other thing. It can be sports. There's no football again, I mentioned it already. But listen, your extracurricular activity, your band, your instrument, your grades, your sport, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your obsession with, ... can all become a distraction. In and of themselves, are they evil? Are they wicked? Are they wrong? Most of the time, no, it's not. And yet something that is good can be turned and it becomes something that now pulls you away from Jesus. Guilty as charged. Father, we thank you for your word today, and we ask that you would help us. We joke about the term locked in, but Lord, that is what we want to do. We want to lock in. We want to have eyes that are fixed on you, a heart fixed on you. Help us, Lord, today. Turn in your Bibles, if you've got one handy, to the book of Luke. And here's what I want to ask you. Before we get into it, I want you to think about this question, right? We're going to be in Luke chapter 10. When was the last time you picked up your phone for one thing and you looked up and 20 minutes had passed? Oof. Okay. When was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for something? Are you even okay with silence? It's funny because we were having trouble with some of our tech things today, right? And there was no house music. Now, this is a little bit different, right? But if I go into a restaurant, right? Perfect example. If I go into a restaurant and there's no house music, I notice it immediately. Like, what is wrong with this place, right? Something's definitely wrong here, right? And I feel it even in my own home, right? When there's nothing but like the buzz of the refrigerator. It is so quiet. When's the last time you sat in that silence and just allowed your world to be quiet? And you didn't reach for something to fill it. You just let it be there. Okay, I know you're feeling convicted already. How quickly do you have to fill those moments? What has the first and last word in your day? On a perfect cue. I want you to hear this. This isn't braggadocious of us, but there is no generation prior to the one right here, us, this room, that has had more distraction available to them than right now in human history. Never before. Which means there is a lot to navigate here. And many times it does feel overwhelming, which is why this has become a gospel-centric message. This isn't just self-help. And the reason this is becoming such a thing is because these things actually begin to get at our heart because they shape us and they become habit. And you know what I mean? Where you have, where your world becomes instinctual, where you just, you've taken your phone, you click the little screen and it's off and it's in your pocket, and all of a sudden you have 30 seconds of dead time, and you just naturally, you pull it out and away you go. Not even because there's anything worthwhile for you to do. You just habitually, instinctively, reflexively now do this. You've trained yourself. You have become discipled by something. This is habitual, and if we're not careful, it becomes an issue of the heart. Okay, Luke chapter 10. Jesus and his disciples were on their way. He came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home, and she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted Everyone say distracted. Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Or indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. It's a simple story. And is it a perfect parallel to what we're talking about? No, not fully. But understand something, that Martha is abiding by cultural norm in this juncture, in this point in the story. In other words, nobody would be looking at Martha's actions and thinking, this is weird. In the same way that nobody would look at you and say, I cannot believe you are checking your phone in the morning. That is an outrage. No one is thinking that or saying that. This is just normal cultural behavior. Now, this one is even deeper. It's tied to honor, right? It's tied to even your reputation. And so Martha is doing what every good person would do. And even in this moment, she's doing above and beyond. She's the one carrying authority in her house. She's the one engaging Jesus and welcoming her in. It's not her brother Lazarus, which is an unusual switching of authority places in this house. We don't even know all the details or why, but Martha's carrying the weight. She's leading. She's doing what's right. She's inviting Jesus into her home. But the one who does the welcoming is also the one who becomes distracted. Which that alone should tell us something. That preaches and that speaks that you can start off in the right spot. And that along the way, you become distracted. Guilty as charged. Our big truth, our big idea for today is what has your attention has you. I believe that is absolutely true. What has your attention ultimately has you. What has your attention today? Jesus, just a little context for us, he's on a traveling circuit, right? He's moving towards this moment on the cross. He's getting closer and closer to Jerusalem. So he gets to Bethany. It's this village, and this is where Martha is. This is where Mary is. This is where Lazarus is. This is where Lazarus is raised from the dead. These are friends of Jesus. He enjoys spending time with them. Hospitality was a big deal. And Mary comes out, invites him into her home, and the Scripture uses a word here that is used nowhere else in the entire Bible. It's this word for distraction. And that's rooted in one other word, and I love a little word nerd activity here, but we won't even get into all the Greek and all the fun stuff that you may or may not care about. But understand, this is Luke the doctor that is writing the book of Luke. So he's using intentional, descriptive words and descriptive language, and he uses this word for distraction. And when we hear distraction, we oftentimes think of like a bird flying through the sky, and it caught your attention. Woo, bird. We were working in my backyard yesterday, and an owl showed up, right, and is perched. And I'm doing stuff, and Amy Lily calls me. She's in the front yard, and I'm in the backyard, and she says, "Look up right now. There is an owl looking right at you." Right? And sure enough, and it's doing the, little jerky head action, and I'm like, well, that's an owl. I don't see an owl every day. Right? Was I distracted? Yes. That's not the kind of distraction that we're talking about. The word that Luke uses is a violent word. It's not passive. It's not soft. It's literally designed to help you understand that there is a tearing that's happening. In the same way that you have a tug-of-war moment and a shredding, a tearing apart, this word distraction is designed to imply that kind of violent activity. There is a tearing and rendering apart. It's destructive. Oh, helps bring a little bit more life to this. It doesn't mean that anybody's angry in this story. It doesn't mean that anyone's actually experiencing physical pain in this story. But what we are to understand is the heart, the mind, the actions, right, of Martha in this moment are being torn apart. And that's what distractions ultimately do. There is a tearing that takes place. What has your attention tears you from one thing, pulls you into another, and now this thing over here has you. What has your attention has you. Now, I know. I'm talking about devices a bit today. This beautiful little guy. I remember when smartphones first dropped. I remember getting my first one and thinking, this is the greatest thing in the history of the whole world. Went from I had like a little, I think it was a razor, right? The little the phone slid open, and it was one smooth motion. It would open up and you had all your little deals and stuff. I was late to the party on the iPhone. When I got it, I was like, this is so cool. Now, I'm talking about this, but I want you to hear me. It's a placeholder in this sermon today. You can substitute this with anything else that gets your attention. But I'm going to zero in on this because I believe front row, second row. Oh, hands are up. Hands are up in the front row. They feel it already, right? Oh, you're by no means the only ones. Let's get very clear here. But you're a generation that has grown up with nothing else but smartphones available, devices, interaction, etc. But track with me on this. The average American touches their phone 186 to 205 times a day. Okay, that doesn't really seem that crazy until you start breaking it down that is once every 5 minutes of your day. Every 5 minutes, there's at least one grab for this. And the younger you are, the higher that number goes. This is just an average. What that actually means, though, is this. By the way, this is Source, this is ABC News, this is Yahoo, this is Instagram's own research. The average American is on their phone roughly 5 hours a day. 5 hours. Now, before you think this is an anti-phone sermon, it's not. I use my phone all the time, and I use it for good things, too. I'm using it for work. I am calling, I'm talking, I'm praying, at times for people. I read my Bible on it. There's a lot of good things that I can use my phone for and with and do. So what I'm not saying is that it's 5 hours of pure wickedness, okay? Not suggesting that at all. But simply that you understand that it's 5 hours a day, the totality of it. And for some of you, it is much higher. Again, the younger you are, the more those numbers go up. And not to fearmonger here, but one of the biggest challenges for this generation, you, front row, is actually phone addiction. And many times we don't see it as such. But it's where it is so instinctual, and to not have it, you literally feel your anxiety beginning to rise. Where's my phone? And the second you have it, all is right in the world. Guess what? You're leaning in towards addictive tendencies and addictive behavior. 5 hours a day. Which means this, that in the course of 1 year, you will have spent 2.5 to 2.7 months of that year staring at this screen. In 12 months, 2.5 to 2.7 of those 12 months in a year, you have spent doing this. Now, some of you are using it for work. Some of you might be using it for school, but again, the younger you are, the more that 2.5 months of the year is spent doing nothing but doom scrolling YouTube, reels, stories. Oh, and some of our adults are laughing. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We all know. Oh, the comment section. Let's just read that for 45 minutes straight. And you're just like, honey, pop the popcorn. This is unbelievable. Can you believe that they're just, and we just do this over and over again. Do we not? Martha was distracted. She had good intentions. She started out in the right spot. And she's doing what is culturally normal. And what I'm talking about with devices is culturally normal. It is normative behavior, average tendencies. And what I am telling you is that the cultural norm in this moment, if you don't get control of it, if you don't surrender it to the Holy Spirit, surrender it to God, it will get your heart. What has your attention has you. And it begins to shape us. And you know what I'm talking about, where you've spent time just in the quicksand, mire, and muck of the comment section, right? Or the video clips from CNN or Fox News or this place or that, and you've just consumed it over and over again. And you finally put your phone down and an hour has passed and you just feel gross. What is happening? You are being discipled. You are being shaped. Do not kid yourself. You are. What has your attention ultimately has you. One last stat for you. The average person receives a phone by 12 years old these days. That's pretty normal, just so you know. If you're like, I can't believe that. Well, that's pretty usual. And when people are getting into middle school and you're trying to navigate pickups and drop-offs and all the things, it's pretty normal. But at this rate of media consumption with this bad boy, if you receive a phone as a 12-year-old, by the time you are 30, you will have spent 3.75 years looking at this screen. Do you hear that? By the time you are 30, you will have spent nearly 4 years on this right here. Some of you parents are literally looking at your kids right now and you're like, see, I told you, take that phone right now, put it away. We're going to break it after church. Amy's mother, when she was a kid, snuck a Ouija board right into their house. Now, this is hardcore, okay? Her mother found out, took it into the backyard, got an axe, and literally axed it in the backyard, then put lighter fluid on it and burned it. And I was like, right on, right? Some of you are feeling that right now, though, with devices where you're like, we're going to take this into the backyard right now, strap a stick of dynamite to it, blow it up, put lighter fluid on it, send it into outer space. Like, we're going to do all these things. And that's not what I'm asking you to do. The reaction isn't to take this pendulum and go all the way over here. Just like Jesus did not condemn Mary for serving or hosting or doing all the things that she's doing. It simply got the best of her. It wasn't that what she inherently is doing is wrong. What I'm not going to do in this moment is shift into all these little rules and practices. That's going to come. We're going to have some application moments as it pertains to distractions in some of these coming messages. It is a series called Under the Influence, so we've got to know what to do about this. But before we get into action steps and boundaries and rules, which if we're not careful can just become religious, we have to do the first thing, and that is address the affections of our heart. What is it in us that we're so uncomfortable with a second of silence that we have to fill it with something? That's a heart issue. That's a heart issue. Verse 41, Jesus, he responds to Martha. I love this. Martha wants Jesus to basically rebuke Mary. Tell my sister to get up in here and help. Jesus doesn't respond to that. But what he also doesn't do is look at Martha and say, oh my gosh, you are such a sinful person. Or get it together, girl. No, he doesn't do any of that. There's no condemnation that's happening here. There's no shaming, there's no guilting, but there is clarity, is there not? There is focus. He says, Martha, and I love that he uses her name twice, Martha, Martha. It's like he's repeating her name. He knows Martha. There's endearment here. Martha, you're worried. You hear Jesus in this moment? Martha, you're worried and you're upset about so many things. In other words, you don't have to be. You don't have to be aware and involved with every single story of outrage that takes place around the world. That is one of the things. I love the connectedness that we have because of devices and technology, right? It's amazing that I can have a global cohort in seminary with people all around the world. We can Skype together, Zoom together, talk together, different time zones. I mean, that world we live in is amazing. But you know what's also not amazing about it is I am inundated with things that I don't need to know about. I don't actually need to know. There's really not anything I can do about it. But I'm weighed down by outrage and by pain and by difficulty. I want you to hear this. I'm not making light of the reality of that pain or that situation. But there used to be a time, there used to be a day where you weren't aware of every single crisis that's taking place. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot for anyone to hold, which is why you aren't Jesus. It is why you are not the Lord of heaven and earth, who is designed, right, to carry all that. You and I are not. And yet you have access to it 24/7. Martha, Martha, you're worried. And you're upset about many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, actually, only one. Jesus is doing this in this moment. He's bringing it all into focus. And He's not condemning. He's not guilting. He's not angry. Mary is doing the unthinkable, by the way. And this is its own sermon. I can't even preach this side of it. But the language that is used regarding Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus is language that's reserved for actual disciples that are being developed and trained and taught. This is rabbi to teacher language, unheard of for a woman to get to experience. And yet, what is Mary doing? She is sitting as a student, right? As someone who is hungry for the Lord. Somebody who's desperate to be in Jesus' presence. And she's sitting at His feet. That's unthinkable. That's unheard of. And yet that is what Mary is doing. Doesn't mean that what Martha was doing is wrong. It's just that in the doing that Martha has going on, it begins to get the better of her heart. Do you guys hear that? I want that to be clear. Because this is not inherently evil. It is not inherently wicked. But as the way things are going in our culture, for most of us, this has become something that is shaping our heart. And by the way, when Jesus, this is not a medical prescription, but when Jesus says you're worried and you're upset about many things, the things that distract us, that distract your heart, are the things that end up causing anxiety. Do you know what this generation has more than anything ever before in history? Anxiety. Anxiety has been prescribed, right, for this generation. And by generation, I'm using like everybody present in this room. At an all-time rate. And it corresponds with the consumption that takes place through this device. As you grow in distraction, and as you grow in all of these things weighing on your heart, you're upset about many things, Martha. What you really need is one thing. But the anxieties rise. We feel that, we sense it, we know it. What has your attention? It has you. When I had my surgery, well, the first one, it was over a year ago now. One of the people that came and preached for us, or for me, was a gentleman by the name of Ross Middleton. He came and preached, he came and sat in my living room, I can hardly even remember it. There was so much medicine taking place at the time, right? And so it's kind of a fog. But some of you might remember Ross because he came and he preached here at our school while I was out. Well, he has a son at Southeastern University, I believe is the name of the school. Is that right? Southeastern University, SCU. And he went to visit him. This is in Florida. This was this week. And his son is involved in a campus ministry there on campus. And you know, the campus meeting was taking place right, while Ross was there visiting his son. And so he decided he'd go with, his son, and he would, as the dad, as a good dad, right, he sat in the back, right? He wasn't going to embarrass his kid, at this big campus ministry meeting. And so he's sitting in the back, and the meeting takes place, and there's speaking, and there's worship. And he described something that happened. He's posting this about young people hungry for the Lord. And something happened in that room. He said the presence of the Lord just was experienced and manifested, and just it became this experience that is almost hard to describe. But he said students just began to cry. And they're worshiping. And they're literally repenting for their sins. Right there. No holds bar. It's so powerful and is lasting for such an amount of time that the university has to cancel classes for the next day. It just doesn't stop. Ross is in the back. He described just being so overwhelmed and so overcome by the experience of who God is and God's presence. And this kind of, we'll call it revival, that's happening among young people is by no means contained to that one university. This kind of thing is happening around the United States right now, all over the place, where it is difficult to quantify and it's difficult to put your finger on, but yet there is this focus, this locked in moment where people are giving their all to Christ Jesus. And there is a refreshing and a revival and a repenting that is taking place. And this is what Ross wrote. I asked him if I could share this. This is one portion of it, because I thought it was so appropriate to what we're talking about today. He says, distractions in our culture are destroying us. They're obliterating our spiritual vitality and life. At this meeting, I was struck by how unimportant so many other things seem when I walked out of that room. Nothing else mattered. Now, I understand that things do matter. I'm not saying you shouldn't be at your kids' sporting events. Be excellent at your job or your grades. Invest in your marriage and all that kind of stuff. I know that there are real issues in the world that need our attention and need to be fixed. But I'm speaking in the language of comparison. Nothing else mattered. It all felt so unimportant compared to Jesus. I just didn't care about whatever crazy thing happened in the world. I didn't care about Bad Bunny or TPUSA or other Super Bowl halftime shows. It felt so trivial to even give 1 ounce of my emotion towards something like that when I can be pouring it out at the feet of Jesus. He's not saying that none of those conversations don't have their bearing or have their place. But when we understand who is in the room, Jesus that you've invited in, Mary and Martha. Jesus that you're coming to worship on Sundays in this moment. Jesus when you sit down on the couch with your cup of coffee at 5 a.m. and your blanket, right? All these other things in comparison do not matter. Teens, I've got news for you, and it's great news. So many of the things weighing down upon you, in light of Jesus, aren't as significant as you might think they are. Having a boyfriend, having a girlfriend, it isn't that significant right now. I know. You might be thinking that's impossible. Oh, it's possible. Jesus is so much greater and more fulfilling. That problem that you're dealing with, I know it's a real issue in your house. I know that thing in your marriage or with your mother or your father or the in-laws. I'm not saying that there's nothing worth talking about, but can we also understand that many times we allow these things to consume us and they become distractions. And in comparison to the goodness and glory of Jesus, it's not oftentimes as big of a deal as we have a tendency to make it. You see, when we are in Jesus' presence, many times nothing else really matters. Because there's nothing like Him. There's no one like Him. David writes in Psalm 27, "One thing have I asked." You hear that? Just the dialed, and in the same way that Jesus is looking at Martha and He says, hey, there's so many things vying for your attention. So many things that have you flustered right now. So many things that have your heart all knotted up. And you know what? They're not there's really only one thing. There's really only one thing that you need right now. The one thing. And David in Psalm 27, he wrote something very similar. His request of God, one thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty, to inquire in His temple. In other words, David is saying, I know of all the things. I'm the king. I'm ruling. I'm governing. I got decisions. I got this. I've made mistakes. I've got all these things. But what I really know deep down in my heart is that there's really and truly only one thing that I need. Only one thing that satisfies. Only one thing. It's that I can be in Your presence. That's what I hunger for. That's what I long for. God, would You help me, lead me into this moment? This is what I long for. It's Your presence more than anything else. Compared to the beauty of the Lord, not a whole lot else really matters. So here's my question for you. We're going to transition into a time of communion, and it's going to be a reflective communion time. What has your attention today? Forget all the things we can talk about regarding rules and boundaries and time limits and apps that will turn your phone off and all the things, or sports or that. Forget all that for a second. Clear the board. What has your attention? What has your heart? Is it a thing? Is it a problem? Give it to Jesus today. Fix your eyes upon Him. Give it to Him.